working professionals as well. So I think pretty much most of you will find this very, very relatable because I have with me today a fourth year student just finished graduation and managed to crack one of the top admits in USA, the Arizona State University and University of Marin College Park. We will soon find out how he went about this journey from himself. So stay tuned for more updates, guys. I think most of you guys have responded to the poll. So I'm going to close this poll and start the next one. Thank you so much, guys. So the next poll I have for all of you is to understand which admission intake are you targeting. Do let me know by answering the poll. In the meantime, Vamsi Krishna has said, I have my GRE within the next 2 days. That's fantastic, Vamsi. I wish you all the best in your GRE admission preparation. If not for GRE, don't worry. We also have a lot of tips on admissions, in terms of university shortlisting, statement of purpose. All of that will be discussed in today's webinar. So do let me know by answering the poll, guys, so we can go forward to the next part. So I think predominantly all of you are looking at for 2020 as your primary target for MS. That's fantastic, guys. I'm going to close this poll as well, and I think we can go forward to the last poll of today's webinar. Just a few more seconds since some of you have said stay tuned, okay? 78% for, okay, I think most of you are looking at fall 2020, a small population for spring 2020. And the last poll for today's webinar is to understand when are you guys planning to give your GRE, because the way the tips and techniques that we're going to discuss today is going to be predominantly based on these questions, because the more days we have clarity in, I think our guest will also be able to give you specific tips on what you have to do in the last 10 days, last 15 days, etc. So Naveen in the audience has said, I'm planning to go for spring 2020. That's fantastic, Naveen. I wish you all the best in your GRE admissions journey ahead. And I hope this guest seminar gives you a sense of clarity on how to move forward as well. Okay, I think now that we're inching closer towards the poll section, so I'm going to repeat this announcement one last time, guys, that your mics have been muted by default by the GoToWebinar portal. If you wish to interact with me, if you have questions for me, feel free to use the chat box available in the right of your screen. If in case you are connected via your mobile phone, there is a question mark button on the top tab. If you click on that, you will also be able to access the chat box. So I see a lot more attendees having joined us just recently. Nilanjana, Neeta Patil, Priyadarshan, Pulkit, Sailesh, Shilpa, Sayali, Neeta Patil, I think Lalitya, Kishan Mistry. So one last time, guys, if my voice is loud and clear, if you're able to see the chat box, can you quickly type in GRE in capital letters and send me, so we have absolute clarity on how many guys are officially connected in today's online seminar. So Srinivas, Sargam, wow, so many names here. I'm not even able to read out all the names. Sai Krishna, Madhamala, Suket, Prashant, Apurva, Priyadarshan, Dipankar, Hemashri, Naveen Hari, Nilanjana have all said GRE. A very, very warm welcome, guys. So today I have here with me a very, very popular guest. Most of you have been asking questions on when this event is going to be. So I'm going to be shortly joined by our guest, a 320 scorer with 2 top admits. So shall we go ahead and start the webinar, guys? Shall I go ahead and invite our guest to the stage? So yes, says Swati, yes, says Hitanshu, Sayali have all said this. So let's, without any further ado, let me just go ahead and invite our guest to the stage. So Danish Faraaz, I have here with me. So hi Danish.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
So guys, are you able to hear and see Danish? So a lot of yes coming in right now. That's fantastic, guys. I think that's great. So now that all of you are able to hear us loud and clear, first of all, Danish, I think a couple of probably 3-4 months ago, I think you would have just been a part of your GRE preparation, and I think how does it feel to be here at this point, having done the 320 score, having got that admits? How does it feel?
I'm very excited right now. I'd like to share my admission journey and my tips for all of you guys who are present here right now. And I'm a bit nervous too. I haven't spoken to, I haven't done much public speaking or not. But overall, I'm excited.
Okay, that's actually very, very honest to be. That's great. In fact, just don't get, I mean, he's too humble, guys, because he's got a fantastic score in TOEFL as well. So I'm pretty sure today we can get a lot of useful insights from Danish today. Now, first and foremost, Danish, before I, go forward in the webinar, can you please introduce yourself? What is your background? Where do you come from?
Hi guys, my name is Danish Faraaz. I did my undergraduate in BE Mechanical Engineering at St. Joseph Institute of Technology. I just graduated this year. I have a GRE score of 320 and a TOEFL score of 110. I got admits from two universities, Arizona State University and the University of Maryland at College Park. And I got a scholarship of $6,000 from Arizona State University for the first year.
Wow, a $6,000 scholarship in the very first year of your MS, and I think that's a very important feat to note, and we will be discussing that more detail in the upcoming slides as well. So guys in the audience, if you have any questions, feel free to post your questions as and when in the chat box. We'll try to take up as many questions as possible, but we do have an exclusive Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So feel free, even if your questions are being missed, don't get concerned, don't get worried. In the Q&A session, we'll definitely solve as many queries as possible. All right. So shall we get started, guys? All right. So I already have some questions coming in here. Fantastic. So now, Danish, I think you said you come from St. Joseph Engineering College.
Yeah.
What was your primary motivation to go for MS in the first place?
Like, I knew I'd be going for higher studies one way or another, but the reason why I chose to do my MS is because I wanted to do a thesis-based course. I wanted to be more research-oriented in my program. Yeah.
Okay, so having the research focus in mind is the reason you're going for masters. And can you also take us through what is the stream you're going for masters in and which university you have finally chosen to go forward?
I've chosen to go to Arizona State University. My graduate program will be masters in robotics and autonomous systems. My specialization would be my undergraduate, which is mechanical engineering.
Okay, wow. So masters in robotics for autonomous systems with a specialization in mechanical engineering. Now, that's a fantastic place to be in. Now, before we discuss the coursework and etc., can you also take us through what was your GRE score breakdown, verbal, quant, and analytical writing?
Yeah, my GRE score was 320 with 155 in verbal and 165 in quants. My AWA was 4.0.
AWA was 4.0. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. So guys in the audience, how many of you have this as your target score? How many of you are very determined that I want to go for a 320, I want to go for 325 plus? How many of you have the target here to me? So me, Prashant, Vamsi, Hemsai have all said I want to. That's great, guys. I think I have here with me someone who has done it all and replicated your journey as well. Let's learn as much as possible today, as many questions as we can ask. So feel free to keep posting your questions here. So now that you've got a 320 in your GRE, Danish, right? So, and I think that kind of ticks off the very first step of your MS journey. What were the dream universities you were targeting at that point, and what are the universities you applied to, and where are your gotten admits?
So my dream university was obviously one of the best universities, which was University of Pennsylvania. But unfortunately, I couldn't get an admit there. But still, I got a university which I had in my shortlist, and that was more than enough for me, which was Arizona State University and the University of Maryland, which gave me the admits. One more university was the University of Utah, but it was not willing to give me an MS program, but rather an ME program. So it was more or less a reject there. So that's.
Okay. So you were very clear about the fact that you want to go for research thesis-based course, which University of Utah was not offering. Okay. So Arizona State University and University of Maryland College Park. So what was your reaction on the very first day you got the admit letter? What was that like?
So like my first decision was itself an admit, which was from the Arizona State University. I got the admit like just 10 days after my application was given.
Wow.
So that may not happen to everyone, but for me it was quite early. And like obviously I was very excited because that was one of the top universities and it had the best coursework in terms of robotics. It had like 4 specializations, which is not common in many universities. So yeah, and then I got a few rejects and then I got admitted in University of Maryland. But like I had already finalized my ASU admission by that time.
You're pretty sure ASU is the one that you wanted to go for as well. Okay. That's actually very, very good. In fact, the fact that you're very clear about Pennsylvania State might be a little above your profile and carefully applying universities. That's, I think, very important factor to notice here. So guys in the audience, Vamsi, Krishna, Harsh, Sangeet, Partha, can you tell me what is the department that you guys are targeting for your MS and what kind of universities do you have in mind? So I just want to understand that so that, it will give us clarity whether you have planned your universities properly or not, because the upcoming webinars that we're going to have, the upcoming slides today, we're going to talk about how to shortlist universities as well as an integral part of the webinar. So computer science says Sai Krishna, industrial engineering says Deepti, robotics says Vaishnavi, I am from IT branch, data science or AI. And for those guys who are joining us from YouTube Live, like I said, I have with me Danish Faraaz, a 320 scorer, and of course, admits from top 2 universities, Arizona State and University of Maryland College Park. If you have any questions, just click on the link in the description and join us in the live webinar. Right. So coming back, Parishta says business analytics and marketing. Okay, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Okay, now that we have the universities in track, right?
Yeah.
So the next most common question that all the students have is, I'm in my third year right now, sir. Should I go for GRE? I'm in my second year. Should I go for GRE now? So the whole concept of getting the timeline right on
Yeah.
when I should be doing what is a very, very huge challenge for students.
Yeah.
So if you had to, based on your experience, give an ideal timeline for the fall 2020 and spring 2020 aspirants, what would the timeline be like?
Okay, from my own experience, I gave my GRE exam on August, which was during my third year, and I started the preparation on June, which you should be doing right now. You should be halfway through. You should be like on the last stages of giving your GRE exam, and like within 2 weeks of completing my GRE, I next gave my TOEFL exam. And then at the same time, at the parallel time of preparing to GRE, I was like shortlisting the universities, looking at the research of professors. And by the time I given my exams, I had like the list of universities I would be applying to. I knew that these were the universities that I would be applying to. So next, I went and prepared all the documents which were required, like the SOPs, the LORs. So those were like drafted and from GREedge itself. They were very helpful to me, prompt in the response. And then like I tried to complete my applications to all the universities like at least a week before the application deadline. Like that's what you should be doing. Don't wait till the end. At least complete like a week before the deadline ends.
Okay, I think that's a very, very valuable point to note, guys. Completing an application at least a week before deadlines is very critical, because time and again we've seen this happen in the past 6 years here at GREedge. A lot of the students tend to apply only on the deadline hour. And what happens is the university receives too much traffic on that time, and for all you know, you might not be able to submit the applications on time. So don't keep it in the rush hour. I think that's a very important takeaway from this particular event. And of course, the ideal timeline speaking, everyone should be preparing for your GRE now. So guys, how many of you are following the timeline that our guest has given so far, preparing for GRE already and university shortlisting in parallel? How many of you are actually doing it? So me, okay. Some of you have said me. All right. I think then, okay. So Madhamala, I have done, says Vamsi. That's fantastic, guys. Good to see all of you already preparing for GRE. Not me, says Saket. I hope now you have clarity on how to go about your timeline. Kishan Mystery says, I booked my Jade for 22nd of August. That's fantastic, Kishan. That's pretty much a good timeline, to be honest. I think I also hope you've started a university shortlisting process in parallel. Okay, all right. So I hope the timeline question is pretty much answered to all of you guys. Now, the next important aspect, right? So you not only managed to jump to robotics or mechanical, you made the jump very carefully to get that specialization in mechanical as well.
Yes.
So one obvious inference that I can pick up is that your profile has to be fantastic because you have no work experience.
Yeah.
So can you take us through what were the things that you did to build a profile, and what are the suggestions and advice you would provide to our MS aspirants in terms of profile building?
So in terms of my profile, I had a industrial project which was related to mechatronics, not really robotics, but on the mechatronics side. But the most important thing that my profile had was like I had completed a lot of courses, online courses from Coursera, Udemy, and so on. So what approach I took was, I took the #1 university in my field, robotics, which would be the Carnegie Mellon University. I went to the website and saw the prerequisite that they are asking for the undergraduate students to join the robotics program. And they had a list of softwares and like mathematics, what was required. Now I took a note of all these prerequisites that was required, and I started building on that. I knew that Carnegie Mellon was too ambitious for me, but what I could do, I could be on par with the students who were going for Carnegie Mellon. So that's what I did. I didn't have a paper either. I just had my laptop and a few online courses. I applied for a lot of online courses. I tried to do as many softwares that were required for robotics as I can. And that's what you should be doing as well if you don't have a good work experience or you don't have a paper. So especially courses from Coursera, they are almost like considered like a research paper that you have, because those courses are much harder than what you think it will be.
Wow, I think that's a very, very new way to look at the entire MS course. So what Danish has done is actually go to the top one, I think first university ranked in the world for robotics, Carnegie Mellon University, understand what prerequisites that they require, and go forward and complete those certifications in the websites like EDX, Coursera, and of course these Udemy, online, etc. Right?
Yeah.
Now that's a very fair insight to have, because always students ask what courses should I pursue from these, and I think you've given the right direction for that. So guys in the audience, how many of you now promise to go and find out the prerequisites that the university requires and start doing those paid certification courses from these websites? How many of you definitely will do that? Me, Tejaswini, Shaishta, Rajat Kumar. That's fantastic, guys, because this will show the university that you are willing to take all that it takes. You're willing to do all that takes to get that admit. It also shows that you're willing to break away from the defined academic curriculum to pick up knowledge on a certain industry. Now, that's a very important aspect. That's what I think is differentiated about you as well, Danish. Now, the billion-dollar question, ironically, which is the scholarship part. Now, you had mentioned that you actually got a $6,000 scholarship from Arizona State University, which in hindsight is actually a very healthy number because given the amount of spending that you're going to make, definitely this is something useful for you. So, how did you go about this scholarship? How did you get it? Number one. The second question is, for the students who are looking for scholarships right now, when should they start thinking about scholarships and how can they apply?
The first thing is I didn't particularly have a separate application for scholarship or anything. I was just one of the lucky students who got a scholarship, and that was also because of my scores. This scholarship was just introduced this year in Arizona State University. It's called the New American University Scholarship. And so what they did was they picked up the students with the most number of scores in everything. They looked at the CGPA, they looked at GRE, they looked at TOEFL. And this was just an automated process. No one selected it. They just gave a feedback to the computer, and the computer just picked up the students with the highest scores, and the scholarship was given to them. Now, if you are looking for scholarship, what I would recommend is first get your admits and then look at scholarship. So don't look at scholarship and then go for the universities. First try to get your admits because scholarships are very rare. Mine I was just like a lucky case that got a scholarship. Also, this scholarship was just introduced this year and so on. I wouldn't have got it if I had applied for spring or something. So what I would suggest is first get your admit and then look at the scholarship opportunities. Another thing you can do is like look at RNTA, but they are usually not given in the first semester. Research assistantship and teaching assistantship, they are given starting from the second semester. So first secure your admits and then look at the ways in which you can reduce your financial expenses.
I think that's a very, very fair statement to make because at the end of the day, you should not be constrained by what kind of, I mean, it's fair to shortlist universities based on your budget, but you cannot look at that and start cutting down on all the options that probably not apply to ambitious universities. If your profile is good enough for a top admit, it might also be eventually good enough for a scholarship second year or the third, or the fourth semester, right? So first go for your admits, like Danish says, first ensure that you complete your application process and you get the deadlines, get the application on time. Once you've gotten an admits, then start probing into each and every university you're applying for, what kind of scholarships are available. Is it possible to get a TA? Is it possible to get an RA? Is it possible to get a tuition fee waiver? Those are questions that you should be thinking about the moment you get that admit, right? So I think that's a very fair statement to make. Now comes the crux and the most important part of the webinar, which is of course the GRE preparations part. Now, first and foremost, what was the duration of the preparation you had? Can you take us through that?
I had like about 3 months for preparation for my GRE, and I looked at the options. I could either go for an offline coaching center and an online, but the thing was I had to like maintain both my college studies and this GRE because I was doing it during my third year. My college was like a very academic focused college, and that's why I had to go for an online course. And that's when I just stumbled upon GREedge on Facebook. I looked at that profile, I gave them a call, and I told them that I would be able to put a maximum of an hour of practice per day, no more than that. And they said that would be possible. We could give a scale, they could draft a schedule for that. And that's when I selected GREedge.
I think that's one of the key factors you get in online preparation where you decide which time to spend on your preparation. That's, I think, very important. Now, one question, in fact, I got in the very beginning of the webinar from Akriti. So, in an online preparation portal, how do you get your doubts clarified? That's one very concern a lot of people have. So, how did you go about your doubts?
Now, GREedge gives you not one but two SFAs. One for the verbal and one for the cons. You can call them, you can message them. They reply within 12 hours if you message them, but you can call them even too. And the best part is they are very prompt in their responses. They make sure that your doubts are clear. And another thing is if you make any mistakes, they are able to solve that immediately.
Okay, that's I think that I think is very important because being accessible for students is something that we keep as a top priority, and we do have a one working day kind of a TAT. Now coming to the next part. So just to give you a context, guys, all of you, if you're thinking that Danish, of course, the topper, so it was easy for him. Now just to give you a context of what has happened in this 2.5 months. So the initial phase of his preparation, you had a 302, 303 in your GRE and your diagnostic test score.
Yeah.
With 2.5 months of preparation, you were able to boost from 303 to a 320. That was a 17-point score boost in just 2.5 months.
Yes.
Now that's a huge jump. So if you had to say the difference between the initial set of preparation and last, what was the difference in these two intakes?
First thing was while giving my first diagnostic test, I just had a brief overview of how the GRE test was going to be. I didn't have much preparation or anything. And then as I went through the GREedge material, one thing I would like to mention is while during the mock test in the GREedge portal, I was just getting a score like 320. So I thought maybe while during the real the GRE exam, I would be getting 315 or something. But then I actually got 320. So that shows how accurate the GREedge mock tests are. So that's the one thing I loved about GREs.
Right, I think the accuracy of mock test is something we always work on pretty much. I think that's an interesting fact I am finding out now as well, guys. So I think that's a great statement to make. But if you had to specifically point out that this is what I worked on, especially in my GRE, what would those areas be?
In the verbal, like for everyone, RCs are going to be the most challenging, and the only thing you're going to do is practice, practice, and practice. There's not much you can do for RC. And there are two important main things for RC, which is you're going to skim the passages, but at the same time you need to process the information. So those tips were given to me by my SFA. And in the quants, I was like a bit stuck up in the geometry part. So my verbal SFA gave me some suggestions. I took notes of them. And another thing for both verbal and quants, I had a notebook. I took down everything for verbal. It was some words which I was finding difficult to memorize. And for quants, it was some like a new formula I didn't know before. I wrote it down, and like a week before the GRE exam, I like closed down the GREedge. I just started revising my concepts again and again. And the last thing, I had a bookmark option in the GRE learning tracker, wherein I could bookmark all my mistakes, the questions which I made mistakes in, and I just started revising them. I didn't have to learn everything. I just started revising.
Okay. I think that's a very important set of things to note. The fact that you're able to go back and work on your mistakes. Now, one important question Parita Shah has raised here is that is online coaching as effective as offline coaching? Now, what's your call on that? You've done that. You know how both the things work. So, based on experience, what would you say is the answer?
I don't think it's actually like both of them are comparable. It's both are different, right? So it depends on how much time you have. But if you ask me personally, I would say I prefer online coaching academy. Like you have one-on-one conversations with your teachers here. Like you could have contact with your verbal and quants anytime you want, and you can learn whenever you want. That's a great advantage of online coaching. Like if you are someone who doesn't have much time, like you don't want to go out of your home, spend more time on your travel. Like if you don't want to spend more time on your travel and such things, I would say you prefer online coaching, which is like better option for some people than offline coachings.
Okay, that's fantastic. Now, one interesting aspect that I noticed in your preparation was the pattern when it comes to your RC. So now what we do here at GREedge is your each and every test performance is benchmarked across students who have got your target score of 165. So if say 1,000 people have taken a test and scored 20 and all of them have scored 165, we compare your performance to that. And now that's the graph visible on your screen right now. So one useful insight that I was able to derive here is in the starting you had a bit of confidence building into your RC because you were able to beat them on time. But moving towards the closer part, the end part of preparation, you kind of were falling back on RC. Now, was this notified to you? Were you aware of this? And if yes, what were the actions that you took to improve this part?
Okay, the part where I'm going down is actually the difficult questions of RC. The first one were quite easy, and then as the difficult question came up, I was doing some mistakes, and then my SFA pointed it out as soon as she could realize. She said that I was skimming the passages, but I was not processing the information. And she suggested me a few ways to do that, and then I started improving. Another thing you can notice is my benchmark target score is 170 there right now, but what I got was 155. That's how you should be as well. Try to target your score as high as possible because most people won't be achieving that target score. It's going to be below that. target 170 and then I got 155. So that's how you should be as well. Try to target a high score. Don't target like 160, 155.
Alright. So always keep your aspirations high, keep your dreams high. At least even if you complete 70% of them, I think you will be where you want to be. Now that's the ideology I think I can take away personally from here. Now apart from the reading comprehension, one more huge challenge that students face in the GRE preparation is the concept of vocabulary.
Yeah.
Now how did you go about mastering these GRE words and what were the action points you took there?
GREedge provides a very good feature called the word bot. So that's the only thing I use for my vocabulary. Like it's a really nice way to picturize the words, so they are more embedded into your memory. And another thing was there are 3 things I could do. I could learn, I could revise, and I could go back to them again. So that's one thing that I use for. I didn't use any other materials apart from the ones provided by GREedge, because honestly I didn't have any other material to refer to. I just used my GREedge and that's all.
Okay, that's a huge compliment coming from you, Danish, because I think you're someone who kind of goes out of your way to get everything you need for anything that you want to accomplish. And to hear that from you, I think Moth is a huge deal for us personally. Now, coming to the admissions part, right? So, you've also got 2 top admits for your profile, and I think that's fantastic. So, how did you go about shortlisting universities for your profile? What were the metrics by which you shortlisted universities, and how would you recommend the students who are going to apply for fall 2020 to do the university shortlisting?
I think 4 major parameters are there before you shortlisted universities. And the first main thing I would say is look at the research conducted by the professors there, because if you go there and you don't like the research, you won't be studying that much. Second is the program ranking that you should look at, and third is the university ranking itself, and the fourth one is the location. This location is not that much of importance. The first 3 are very, very important, and how I went about is just following this pattern. I got a list of all the universities in the US that are a robotics program. Those were like 19 universities. And then I saw that most of them were too ambitious for my profile, and you should be realistic as well. You should know that whether you should apply to this. Just because it's going to be a very high ranking university doesn't mean they will accept you. And for someone who didn't have any work experience or research paper, I knew that those universities would not apply to me. Like as I said before, I took my inspiration from Carnegie Mellon, but I didn't apply to Carnegie Mellon because I knew my level when compared to other people, right? So that's how you should go about. Be realistic. Like I applied to 2 ambitious, 2 moderate, and 1 very safe universities. I got 2 admits. One was an ambitious, which was Maryland, and the other was Arizona State University, which was a moderate university.
Okay. I think benchmarking your own abilities when you look at these kind of processes is very, very, very important. Also, talking to the alumni on what kind of profiles they had when they got an admit also gives you a standpoint on whether you're behind them or ahead of them. Yeah. I think it's very important, and you've taken a very safe call here to apply for achievable universities. You've got it as well, along with scholarships. I mean, what more can you expect? That's a good start as well. Now, guys, I also see a lot of you joining us just now. Payal, Pooja, Piyush have all raised your hands. I think you're waiting to ask questions. I understand, guys. Basically, if you're new to this portal, your mics have been muted by default by the GoToWebinar portal. If you wish to interact with us, if you have questions for us, feel free to use the chat box available in the right of your screen. If in case you are connected via your mobile phone, there is a question mark button on the top tab. If you click on that, you will also be able to access the chat box, right? So, in fact, we're going to have an exclusive Q&A session at the end of the seminar, so don't worry, Corey, don't get concerned if your questions are not taken up. I can see all your questions popping up here as well. So, the next and a very critical part of the university shortlisting, right? Now, when you got the list first at the pre-GRE, what was your thoughts when you looked at the list, and how did you go about shortlisting universities from that list?
I got a list of about 19 universities from GREedge with the drafted. I think I was one of the first students to go for a master's in robotics from GREedge because they took some time to draft the list, but they gave it anyhow. So within these 19 universities, like I said, I looked at those parameters. I wanted to go, apply for no more than 6 universities, and I looked at like 2 ambitious, 2 moderate, and 1 safe universities. And then what happened was like, as I said earlier, you have to look at the research done by the professors there. That's the most important, whether you like the research or not. That's one of the most important thing. And another thing is, just because the university is higher ranked doesn't mean you should go there. Like University of Maryland is higher ranked than ASU, but I didn't prefer University of Maryland because it was an ME program that was offered to me rather than the MS program which was given to me by ASU. Another thing I forgot to mention was look at the curriculum, right? So ASU's robotics curriculum was divided into 4 different specializations: mechanical, electrical, artificial intelligence, and systems. Of which because my undergraduate was mechanical, I took the mechanical specialization under the robotics stream.
Okay. So picking up the specialization for mechanical under robotics, now that's a very new course that you actually talked about, and I think it's very important that students know about that as well. Now, apart from this, I think more questions have come in from the audience here. So we will be taking up these questions, guys, don't worry. Now, the next part, so we've talked about GRE preparation, we've talked about the university shortlisting, which has to happen in parallel.
Yeah.
But the immediate follow-up right after that is the statement of purpose. Now, when did you first think about statement of purpose? What research did you do? And how did you go about drafting a SOP?
Okay, so while I was doing my GRE preparation, I understood that GREedge people were very capable of what they were doing, and that's when I decided my admission process should also go through them, and that's when I registered myself in the admission process of GREedge. Like what they do is they send you a questionnaire which you have to fill, and these questions are very general, brief overview that answer brief overviews of about yourself, and then using the inputs that you give, they draft the SOP for you. And the first master SOP was given like within 2 weeks of completing my questionnaire, and then the variants are easy to do because they are university specific. The only line I had to add was about the university itself and the professors I was working under. So, and next the LOR, I had to answer a questionnaire on how the people who are giving me the LOR think about me, and that was a bit difficult to do because I had to understand from the perspective of my HOD, my professor, but still they were able to give me a good SOP and good LORs. Obviously they helped me get the admits and the scholarship.
That's true. I think a statement of purpose is going to be one of the most important documents, like Danish just pointed out, because that's the only communication where you get to write what the admission committee should know about you. Because all the other factors are going to cover your GRE score, all of them are numeric entities or some other description. SOP, on the other hand, is a letter that you directly write to the university, which makes it all the more important. But like you said, if you had to summarize it into these 7 points that SOP must cover, what would the 7 points be, Danish?
The first thing is why you are choosing this field, and it just needs to be very brief. Don't make it very fancy or poetic. I see many people doing that. Just be brief and to the point. And second one is the relevance of your experience if you have one. And third one, academic projects. These are going to play an important role. I had a few academic projects. Those were related to an industry that I was working with. Fourth one is the work experience. I didn't have any, so I left this blank. Fifth one is one of the main points that is required. Professors in the university. Look at the universities, the field of your choice in the university, and look at the professors and the research that they are doing in. Writing this point in the SOP shows that you have done your work, you have done your research on the university and the program itself. It shows that you are committed to joining this university. And the last would be why this university, why you have chosen this among other universities. Seventh would be the long-term goals, which is you can do it yourself, the long-term goals. That's easy. The main point I would like to mention is the fifth one, professors in the university. Don't miss it out. Make sure you write about at least 2 professors. Just a short statement saying I would like to work under this professor because of this research that is doing, and how this research is very how you love this research and so on.
Okay, I think that's again very important 7 factors, and one of the ones that important highlight is the professors in the university, because at the end of the day, no matter what university you choose, you're going to be studying under certain professors, and having that alignment in terms of what you plan to research or you plan to go for career later with the professor's research area is absolutely essential. And also mentioning the name of professor in your statement of purpose makes the university know that, okay, this person has done research on this particular university. That shows the passion that you can display towards a university as well. So I think that's a very useful tip. How many of you from the audience have already started thinking or at least draft an SOP? How many of you have done that so far? Garang, Vaishnavi, Madhamala, Pavar, Tabash, have any of you started that? So, okay. Shubham, Vaishnavi. Okay, I think some of you have already started your SOP, so that's fantastic, guys. Wish you all the best. Do ensure these important points are covered in your statement of purpose, right? Now, apart from this, the one more, just in case if you want a free giveaway, we have actually got the initial snippet of Danish Faraaz's SOP here, right in front of you. This was an introduction of the SOP. Now, when you read the SOP in the first draft, what did you feel like? What was your reaction on the SOP?
I thought that I couldn't have done better myself. I really love the way they have started this. I just gave them the input that I was working on online courses, and they have added that there's a statement that says that I always like to learn. So that's the one thing I couldn't have done that myself. I didn't know that. So they took my own thoughts and they molded it, right?
Okay, I think that is a very essential part because the inputs that you give, in fact, I think one thing I always tell every student at GREedge is that the more inputs you give, the more better your SOP output is going to come. So I think it's both ways. I think the number of inputs given was very high. And of course, I mean, it's a story that is worth to be written for Danish. Like I said, for someone to go out and find out the prerequisites required for a coursework in your 4th year and completing those using paid certification courses is not an easy task, as most of you would agree with me as well. Okay. Now, apart from this, I think once you cross these hurdles like your GRE preparation, your university shortlisting, your SOP, then comes the next part, the visa interview.
Yeah.
So, how was your visa interview like? Were you nervous? Were you worried? Because there's a lot of aspect that rejections might come, etc.
Yeah.
What was your thought process there?
Obviously, I was a bit nervous, but I had already taken like 2 visa mock tests from GREedge, and I was quite confident of my answers. But like everyone's going to be nervous while doing the visa interview. Mine was like a very funny interview because the only thing they asked about me was my age, and the rest of the 2 questions was about my dad actually, which company he worked for, how long has he been, and that's all. Your visa has been approved. I was like just I was like holding my slip and I was looking at her like shocked. She said goodbye and that's it. I thought they would be asking more questions. He didn't ask any documents, nothing. The only thing they asked is about my age and my father, and that's all. So what I would be telling you is just stay calm. As long as they are sure that you'll be returning to India, back to India, as long as they are confident in your answers and so on, you'll be getting the approval.
That's, I think, very important. I think you'll be very confident about what you have to offer, and the fact that you plan to come back to India is indeed a very important factor. I mean, don't say that you want to immediately leave, but you eventually should have the plan to come back as well. That's a very important aspect of visa interview that a lot of people go wrong in. So I hope that pretty much gives you a sense of clarity. Now, having done all this, having gone through the entire journey yourself, if you have to sum it up, say these are the essential tips I will give with respect to fall 2020 aspirants, what would those tips be?
The first tip would be to start as soon as possible. Like right now is the time. You should have been like halfway through your GRE preparation right now. I think most of you would be doing it. Try to give your exam by August, and within 2 weeks try to give your IELTS or TOEFL exam. Another tip for GRE exam is like, as I did, try to note down everything. If you find any word that's hard, try to note it down. And if there is any formula that you're unfamiliar with, note it down and revise it daily and day before the exam. Don't try to learn something a week before the exam. Don't try that. Try to revise a week before the exam. And about the admission process, try to know more about the research. That's the main part I have always said. You have to look at the research conducted by the professors there, and the university ranking is important but not as important as the research. And lastly, about your SOP and LOR, don't delay it more than it's required. It's got to be finished at least like 2 months before your admits are, 2 months before your application deadlines, and try to submit the application at least a week before it.
I think starting early definitely is a very essential factor because it's just about July that's going to get over. We have only 3-4 months left for the priority deadline to start. So wake up for fall 2020, guys. It's just about time to start your application process and of course your GRE preparations as well. Now I'm going to move forward, to ask a lot of questions because I see so many questions from the audience that they want to ask you today in particular. So guys, this is your opportunity now. Today we're going to answer as many questions as we have. So feel free to put your questions and answer. So Vipul Sharma's first question is, I'm a second year student. When would you advise me to give GRE?
I think it's more than enough to give the GRE on your 3rd year at the August to September, or if you're not satisfied with your GRE score, you think you'll be getting a low score, try to give it even now if possible, because you'll be able to take a retest again if you want. But if you're confident of your preparation, I think just once is enough. During a 3rd year is more than enough. Try to focus on your studies right now because we are on a 2nd year. Try to build your profile. Right now, I would say it's the best time for you to start working on online courses right now.
Okay. So I hope that addresses your question. Now, Ankit Singh already has a concern. So, can I still start for fall 2020 or should I only apply for fall 2021? What would your take be on that?
Okay, you have like a 1 month preparation. If I would say so myself for GRE, try to put at least 3 hours per day. and you will be able to give your GRE exam. The rest will come just.
Okay,
You
so
have more than enough time.
exactly. Then Aniket, you definitely have time. It's just that you do a lot of things parallelly in terms of a GRE preparation, university shortlisting, etc. And I think you should be able to make it. Now, one interesting question from Vikyat Shetty. He wants to understand that should I go for MS after having work experience, or is it better to take up MS before that? What would your thoughts be?
It depends on you actually. People with work experience are actually given preference in some universities, but I didn't have work experience and yet I was able to get an admit as well as a scholarship. It depends on you. If your work experience is related to the field that you're going for the MS, then I would suggest have a work experience if you want. But some people, how do I put it? It's hard to study after you give a period of gap to it. So if you're studying well right now, try to go for an MS as soon as you finish your B.
Okay. Okay. So I hope that answers your question. It depends on what coursework you're going for as well, and the relevance to your undergrad domain. As long as your undergrad domain is relevant to the masters you're applying for and you have a good profile, you can just directly go forward and apply. Now, apart from that, more questions coming in. Srajan Gupta wants to understand how much GRE score is enough to make me eligible for all top university admits.
So the problem is, don't think that only your GRE matters, right? Everything matters for that. You need to have a good GPA. But if you want to like top universities, about 315 is more than enough. But it depends on the rest of your profile as well. Just because you have a high GRE, it doesn't mean you have got a secured admit in the top 20 university or so. Everything matters for you.
Okay, I hope that addresses your question. I think your profile is more to focus on more than anything else. Yes, GRE is essential and going for a 320 score should do the job, but that will not guarantee you an admit. You need to have a very strong profile as well. Now, one interesting question from Tabshir from the audience is that I'm a mechanical student as well and I would love to take robotics. What I should be doing?
Okay, like I said, try to do as many online courses as possible. I went to the Carnegie Mellon website and took the prerequisite from them. And if you're going for robotics, the main thing that's going to be required for you is the math and a few softwares. And that's for you to research. I can't be saying everything. Do the hard work that I did because that would be fruitful for you in the end.
I think it's very essential. I think your direction is that you need to finish the prerequisite for any robotics course at any university. And to start with, I think why not start at the world ranked #1 university for robotics as well. Okay. Now, one more interesting question. Why have you chosen USA as your master's? Can you take us through that?
Yeah, I chose USA because I wanted to go for a MS program especially. And I couldn't apply to Germany, but they were asking like at least 2 years work experience. I didn't want to spend 2 years here. And I felt that for robotics, US is one of the topmost countries that's spending a lot of money on that, and the research was particularly well in US. I looked at other countries as well, but I felt that US had the better research in robotics right now. Their universities are like topmost in terms of the research.
Okay, I think like I said, I think at the end of the day, guys, just think of this once. If you have a question about USA, just handpick or count the number of organizations or companies or brands that are hiring in USA, Canada, and Germany after your graduation. Thus, the sheer volume of companies in USA beats down any other country, safely speaking, because there is this one street in USA where the number of company in that one particular street apparently has more number than the entire number of companies in Canada, right? So that's the level of opportunity you get when you go for a country like USA. So I hope that answers a lot of questions. Yeah. Now coming back, Niranjana Das wants to understand, is research paper publication mandatory for an MS?
It's not mandatory. I didn't have a research paper first of all, but yet I was able to get an admit and a scholarship. Research paper shows that you have put in your effort to understand that particular field. Like if you're in the second year or so, I would suggest it's like it's going to be important boost up to your profile if you have a research paper. If you are not able to publish a research paper, I would say work on online courses. Some courses from Coursera are almost like they are considered equivalent to a research paper. What they are going to show is their commitment to the field that you are going into. So lastly, I would say it's not required, but it's better if you have one. Right?
Okay, so it's not a mandatory criteria. It'll give you a competitive edge at the end, especially if you're going for top 10 universities like he pointed out, Carnegie Mellon, Stanford. When you're competing on those levels, yes, research paper becomes a very essential criteria. But if you want to go for a master's where you're willing to take that opportunity and build networking for yourself, and I think it's not an essential criteria as well. Okay, so more questions. A lot of so many questions here. Just try to post it in one space. We'll try to answer that. Okay, with Vikyat, one more question. Completion of online courses, are they considered to be part of the profile?
Obviously, they are considered. You could put it on your resume and your SOP. I did those, right? So those are just going to boost up your profile. Online courses show your commitment to the field. It shows that you're willing to not just academically, you're not just going to work on it, but you're going to, even your free time you're spending on that field. That shows your commitment to it, right?
Wow, that's very essential, because when you're able to show the university that you're willing to go out of your way with respect to the academic curriculum and choose masters, then I think it's an essential part of your profile. So don't worry. Now coming back to one important question, the letter of recommendation. So letter of recommendation. How did you go about letter of recommendation? Who did you collect it from, and how do you go about it?
Okay, I collected my letter of recommendation from my HOD. Professor in my college, and the second was from a industrial person for whose company I had done a few projects on. And the first thing is the drafting of the LOR. Try to get into the mind of the person you are getting the LOR from. Try to know what they think about you. So that's going to be important. How are they going to because most of the time the person you're getting the LOR from, they don't draft it. They refuse to draft it because they don't have the time. You're going to draft it mostly. And when you draft it, know what they're going to be saying about you. Another main thing I wanted to say is, when you are getting the LOR from a person, make sure you tell him that you're going to apply for this university at this time. He should be free to upload that LOR to the university. I had that problem because one guy was not able to upload a LOR. I had to get a fourth LOR from another professor. And that was the crucial period. That was for Arizona State University actually. Oh. I had to quickly go to GREedge again. I had to tell them that I needed a fourth LOR drafted. Yeah, but they were quick to draft me a LOR.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, these stories is what makes you realize the importance, the essentials of deadlines as well, and the importance of planning, most importantly, I would say, makes a big difference at the end of the day. I think a lot of questions have been answered so far, but based on all this, what has ever happened so far? Now, if you had to, what was the impact of the learning tracker, the admission tracker, the SFA? What value did they add to your MS journey, and how was your overall experience with GREedge?
Obviously, they had a big boost up to my profile because my diagnostic score went up from 302 to 320, and the SFS played a very good role because they were able to draft me a schedule which was just an hour a day. I had alternative days in which one day was for Weibull and the other day was for Quants, and if I missed a session or something for a day because I wasn't able to do it, they were quickly able to reorganize the missed class into some other part of the course. And I had to daily work on the word bot. I had to learn the vocabulary because that's just required. You have more than 3,500 words you should learn. And as far as the admission process, GREedge was quite prompt in delivering my SOP and LORs. And visa interview, that's the last part. They gave me 2 mock interviews. The first one was just about how it's going to be. The second was more or less like a real visa interview, but this was what they gave me. And the visa mock interview was quite good, and they asked me more questions than the actual visa interview, so I was quite confident of my answers there.
Okay, so having a real life simulation of how the visa interviews in a tougher platform will definitely prepare you better for the event. So one more question has come from Vipul Sharma. How should I build a strong profile for getting an admit from Stanford MS Computer Science? So just to give you an understanding, Saurabh, only 5 to 6 people from entire India get selected for the Stanford CS program in intake. So can you just give us some profile building tips?
Yeah, first point is whether you'll be able to build a profile right now or not. If you are in the second year, you definitely have the chance. If you are in the final year, there's hardly anything you can do right now. Try to be as realistic as possible. If you are in the second year, I would say publish as many papers as you can right now in the field of interest. That's what these top universities are looking at. Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, MIT, they are looking at your research because if you publish a paper, it automatically shows your work on that field. And another thing you could do is work on industrial projects. Don't go for projects on your own. Try to work on industrial projects. Try to find a company that works on the field of interest. You need to approach them yourself, right? and no one is going to help you if you want to build up your profile. Approach them, you start, ask them if you could do anything, if you could work, collaborate with them or something, show them your skills right now, you'd be able to build up your.
So I hope that answers your question, Vipul Sharma. I think you are, it's a good question you've asked. And I'm really hoping you are in your second year right now, because you need to go for research publication that is relevant to your domain, because that's going to give you a significant advantage. And apart from that, of course, the regulars, your GRE score, your TOEFL score, or your IELTS score, the kind of internships you pick up, the kind of learning that you're taking away from your undergrad, how much have you made most of it, is what Stanford is going to look for. In fact, sometimes we have seen students with a 296, 300 GRE score also get admitted in Stanford simply because their profile is outstanding. So focusing on your profile at this point is very essential, and I wish you all the best here. So that's what we do at the Mentoractive program as well. Feel free to know more about it later. Now coming back for more questions here. So I'm a final year student, not yet started the preparation yet, but I want to go for the exam for fall 2020. What should I do right now? Sai Krishna's question.
This was just answered a few questions back. As I said, you have like a 1 month preparation for a GRE. Try to put a minimum of 3 hours up per day, and yeah, you still have time. It's not a big concern right now. You have time, but you have to put more hard work than the others, because you want to be on par with them. Some people are already on the final stages of the GRE preparation. Start as soon as you can. That's what I would say.
So definitely, Sai Krishna, I think you need to start with your GRE preparation ideally, and give your GRE next 1.5 months, 45 days at best. That would give you a right start required for your top university admit, and wish you all the best for that. And now guys, there's a small poll that is launched on your screen. Do ensure that you answer the poll. And Saurabh Nagame asks, how much is your CGPA?
Yeah, my CGPA is 8.8. I was the topper in my college.
Wow, that's fantastic. I think that definitely adds a huge advantage as a part of your profile as well. Having a good GPA compared to your toppers, something called weighted GPA, is essential for you to have a top admit focus. Okay, now I think a lot more questions coming in my screen right now, but I think pretty much a lot of them are repetitive questions that we've answered already. So I hope that, we can go forward next part. So I think with that, we come to the official end of today's online webinar. So one Rohit question, was your 12 marks also considered part of your master's admission?
They would ask it, but it's not as much important as your CGPA is going to be. So that's just it.
I think the more relevant, the more recent
CGPA is going to be the most important for you.
The more recent academic endeavors is what they're going to look at primarily. Of course, 12 does play a role, because it gives a pattern on where you come from, what background do you contain. But the essential part is, of course, your CGPA. I hope that addresses your question, Rohit. And with that, we come to the official end of today's webinar. So first of all, Danish, thank you so much for spending your time here at GREedge office. And I think it's been a huge pleasure having you here. Just to give in the context, I think it's students like you who help us understand the overall bigger picture. Thank you so much for your presence. Do you have any last message for the students here?
Like I said, start as soon as you want. Try to have a schedule, right? By now you should be on your end stages of GRE preparation. Another thing I faced was a financial problem, and try to have a schedule for everything. Be on the mindset on what you're going to do, no matter what happens. Stay focused on your end goal, which is going to secure an admit and go to the whatever country you're going to. And another main part is the financial issue. Try to get a loan, or if you're rich enough, try to fund by yourself.
I think planning your funding is absolutely essential, guys. That's one more thing that you have to start as early as possible. In fact, I'm pretty sure, Danish, that's one concern you'd have had in mind as well. So how does your accommodation look like there?
I've already signed my lease there with 4 other students.
Wow.
3 other students actually, a 4th together. And accommodations are pretty well. Our monthly rent is $335, and utilities are their extra cost, right?
Wow. I think it's going to be a fantastic experience. And how many of you here dream to be just like this? In a year from today, I also want to go for a master's. How many of you are absolutely sure about this from the audience here? Now that you've kind of had a clarity on what all has to be done, how many of you have the clarity? So Rohit says, Pranam says, wow, a lot of me coming in right now. Now, if you are one of those students who are very, very serious about going for a top university admit, feel free to type in GRE in your chat box and send it to me. I'll share a link privately with you guys. Open the that link in any of your browser, whichever browser that you have, go for that. Fill your name, email ID, and your phone number in that particular link. Once you fill your name, email ID, and your phone number in that particular link, you will be able to avail an exclusive call with one of our student counselors here at GREedge, who will understand your current profile, understand what kind of background you come from, and the best of all, help you avail exclusive offers on premium GRE and admission counseling programs. The link is right away available there. So Vipul says, only Stanford, love you GREedge. Vipul Sharma, wish you all the best in your quest towards Stanford. In fact, just the last week we got a student, like I said, with an admit from Stanford as well. His name was Bipin and he scored a 296 in his GRE. So we're going to be having more and more guest seminars like these in the upcoming events as well. So stay tuned for more updates from GREedge. And until then, this is Vishnu and Danish signing off. A very good evening and take care, guys.